Hey y'all, this is Daisy Dreaming, and I am so glad you're here. Welcome back to episode 3 of the Tinytown Challenge, which is a new rags to riches type challenge that was created by the Sims 4 YouTuber Deligracy. As with the first 2 episodes, I have provided links to her channel, as well as her website, in case you'd like to try this challenge yourself, or just check her out. I want to start out with a quick thank you to all of you who have been watching. Thanks to those liking and commenting and helping to support my little channel. I also want to start out with somewhat of an apology. I'm not typically a ditzy person, but for whatever reason, the only making money from our skill thing just wasn't clicking for me for the first entire 2 townies. So in my own gameplay, I've really only done the 100 Baby Challenge and then Rags to Riches challenges. And with Rags to Riches, you sell everything you find. So I think it was just my knee-jerk habitual reaction, I suppose. But anyway, I want to apologize for that. There will be no more selling collectibles except to pay our bills when there isn't enough, and no more inheritance calls. I'm sure my long-lost relative has other people to leave funds to. So now that we have that out of the way, this week we begin with Ziggy Yarn. I have been so excited for this one because my other all-consuming hobby is crochet. Not knitting, but crochet. And I also love embroidery and cross-stitching. My mama has decorated nearly her entire home with crocheted blankets and decor and things I cross-stitched a billion years ago in high school, but I'm pretty much as obsessed with yarn as I am The Sims. I was so excited I came this close to making a me townie for the yarn skill, but then I saw this cute Ziggy and I just said, nah, he's too cute. I'm just gonna keep him. So to illustrate his cuteness, this, my friends, is Ziggy Yarn, our next townsperson. I kept him pretty much the same, but as with Beatrice, I added a few new outfits just for my own taste. I like for them to change clothes periodically. Ziggy likes knitting, crochet, that should say cross-stitch, not crochet. He is a mid-century decor style kind of guy, and he loves the color yellow. When we left off, we had completed Azure Hue and Beatrice Jam, and now with number 3, Ziggy Yarn, I did as before by moving him in, making him friends with the other tiny townies, and then kicking Beatrice out and asking her to be a roommate. And Azure and Mitchell are still rooming here with us as well. Ziggy's aspiration is a creative one for Lord of the Knits, and for his first milestone, he has to knit for 5 hours, start 3 knitting projects while inspired, and knit in a rocking chair. Up to this point, we have Beatrice and Azure side by side on the right side of the property, and now with Ziggy, we're going to balance it out a little with him being the first one on the left side. Beatrice brought Ziggy over to her place and told him she could really use some help with her animals. She told him if he'd do the few farm chores needed each day, he could shear Cotton Candy, the sheep, and use the wool for his craft projects, and he figured that was a pretty good trade-off. And after a quick tutorial on what needed to be done, he headed to his plot of land and sold his few items to get his starting money. Selling these gave him 219 simoleons. He chose to start out small, which isn't really even cheap, with $80 for the smallest hoop, and he selected a simple pattern of stick figures. While he worked the pattern, Beatrice and a couple of her friends kept him company. He worked inside for a little bit to listen to some relaxing music, and he worked on his first project for quite a while, until his finger was too sore and he had to take a break. He realized he was famished and was excited to see that Beatrice had baked him some delicious cookies to welcome him. He made quick use of the public restroom, and then got back to his cross-stitch project. Several more hours and he reached level 2 of the cross-stitch skill and finished his very first project. It wasn't the greatest first attempt, but selling it gave him his first $11 profit. Then it was time to climb into his tent for his very first night's sleep in Tinytown. No idea what this strange glitch is with the plate and the microwaved food. But the next morning he freshened up and heated himself a breakfast burrito. And then the first bills were delivered for 5,126 simoleons, so he headed to the bank and withdrew the amount to pay them. Then he settled down to start his next cross-stitch project. Once that was finished, he used some of the profit to buy a box of knitting supplies, because he had been wanting to learn that skill as well. Then grabbed another hoop and another project to cross-stitch some more. Side note. Now, I don't think I can fully express to y'all what a painstakingly slow trip around Tinytown it is with Ziggy yarn, but I want to warn y'all now that it was an unbelievable amount of days, weeks, and even seasons to get through this one. I will likely cut out a lot of the reel of him just doing the cross-stitch and knitting, but let the record show that he did work relentlessly on his skills and aspirations, but I'm not going to put y'all through the torture I went through with watching all of it. After a couple of cross-stitch projects, he thought he would learn to knit and started with an easy pattern of a cute panda bear beanie.
Oh.
He got the hang of that pretty quickly.
Oh.
Then he grabbed a quick glitchy microwave dinner, said hi to Azure, and went for another night's sleep in the tent. The next morning he was startled awake from a dream of being chased by chickens, and then he remembered he had farm chores he had so far been neglecting. So he took care of those, keeping the wool as Beatrice had said, and storing the eggs and milk in the fridge. He then finished the knitted hat that somehow ended up being excellent quality on his very first try, and he listed it for sale on Plopsy. And then reached level 4 in cross-stitch. He got the hang of that pretty quickly, and there's only one level left for him to max out that skill. And working on his next knitted project got him to level 2. He soon finished that one, listed it on Plopsy, and started another. A while later, and reaching level 3 of the knitting skill also helped him hit his first milestone. To reach the next milestone, he'll need to reach level 4 of knitting, knit while listening to music, and sell a knitted object on Plopsy, most of which he's been doing, so he should knock that out in no time. He had noticed the gardening was looking a little neglected and thought he would give that a try, and he found that he enjoyed that as well. He pulled an all-nighter of knitting, and by morning he had hit level 4. A quick needs refresh, some farm chores, and then he deposited the roommate's rent money, a total of $1,530, into the town's bank. More knitting and another listing for sale on Plopsy. More glitched out food from the microwave, and the hoop for another cross-stitch wiped out what little money he had, so he decided to try out the market table, even though he only had the one to sell. He marked it up 300%, and believe it or not, his one sad little cross-stitch project sold for 428 simoleons. So he figured whenever possible, it was probably best to work on those for his income, since knitting didn't appear to be as lucrative. He had his first sale on Plopsy. Someone named Not Bella Goth bought one of the panda hats for 57 simoleons. Man, we're not going to get very far on those kinds of profits. He shipped the item, which completed the next milestone in the Lord of the Knits aspiration. For the next milestone, he will have to complete 10 excellent knittables, successfully gift 3 knittables, achieve level 6 of the skill, and successfully show off his knitted sweater to another sim. He was helping out in the community, working in the garden, when suddenly...
You're not gonna believe this!
I mean, really? Azure, our Tinytown founder and wife of the ghost of Mitchell, dropped to her death due to cold, even though she's wearing her winter clothes. I guess it was another glitch. Yay us!
Yay!
Ziggy has a high friendship with her, so he thought surely Grim would listen to his pleads to save her, but nope.
Damn it! Are you kidding me?
With nothing else to do until Frank Stem moves in and learns to make ambrosia, the magic ingredient to bring his 2 friends back, he placed her gravestone next to her husband's and used the option to strengthen her connection to the physical world so they'd at least have her ghosts with them in the meantime. The next day, he received comfort from a cute raccoon, as well as his neighbors. And then after stitching a couple of cross-stitch projects, he sold them for just enough to build the tiniest of structures. He just couldn't handle another cold night in that tent. He did some more gardening and had to make some repairs because Mitchell, in all of his sadness, kept haunting things and breaking them. Then someone bought another of his projects on Plopsy, and he used the money to purchase a tree that attracts birds that he can befriend in the hopes that they'll bring him helpful gifts like wool and patterns. After a night's sleep, he introduced himself to the birds. He gave them a gift of produce, which they were undecided if they liked or not, and they gave him a rabbit cross-stitch pattern. He did some more knitting, had more glitchy food that he nuked in the microwave, and then spent the entire night fixing all the objects that sad Mitchell broke. At least he got a new level of handiness out of it. After he finally got some sleep, he awoke to another sale on Plopsy and this spiffy new mustache. He was running really low on funds. We are seriously just spinning our wheels, I'm telling you. So he worked on our projects, stopped to take care of the animals, then went back to stitching all day. He then threw it on the table to sell. It took all night long, and he only made 416 simoleons. I mean, as crafts go, that's a lot of money for a small hoop, but with all the lot responsibilities and the time it takes to make each item, he was beginning to think he was never going to earn a living at this rate. Beatrice was kind enough to let him use her kitchen to put together some healthier meals than the microwave ones. One thing he's noticed about this town is every time he goes to do a task, like farm chores, cooking, gardening, etc., random people come out of nowhere and start talking to him.
Who are you people?
More bill money from the townspeople. He ran into Beatrice and gave her one of the bear beanies he had knitted. She said it was so cute and she'd be proud to wear it. He worked on some cross-stitching, and then as he walked by the garden, he thought he saw the scarecrow move, but that's not a thing, right? His next sale was of 2 recent projects, and he got $344 for one, and hours later he finally sold the other for 688 simoleons. He had heard about roommates who were always bringing food, and when he met Beatrice, he was super excited because he figured she'd be bringing legendary dishes out all the time. But for whatever reason, she only brought sweets, cakes, and cookies all day long. They were yummy for sure, but Ziggy and pretty much everyone else was starting to get a little thick around the middle. Maybe his contribution to the town will have something to do with exercise. Hours later, and another project down, and he maxed out the cross-stitching skill. And a little while later, reached level 6 of the knitting skill. Bills were due again, another $48.50, but this time when he went to withdraw the money, there wasn't enough. He sold a bunch of milk, eggs, and harvestables that they had grown in the town until he reached the full amount to pay them. He spent a little of his earnings to buy a rabbit house, similar to the tree with the birds, in that when he makes friends with the rabbits, they'll bring him gifts, and hopefully he'll get lots of wool and patterns. And the next morning, sure enough, he met his first rabbit. And then while repairing the dew collector, see, he knew he wasn't crazy. Certainly nothing crazy about standing here talking to a scarecrow and having him talk back. Nothing at all. While Beatrice serenaded the boys, he knitted himself a sweater. Not too bad, huh? He also knitted one for his rabbit friend, who he had named Zag, and talked to his raccoon friend again as well. 2 more plates of fattening cookies from Beatrice, but man, he thought they're just so good. And then while Beatrice was showing off her dance moves, he reached level 7 of the knitting skill. To continue meeting the requirements of his aspiration, he gifted his friend Orlando a pair of socks that he knitted, and he really liked them, and then they chatted a bit while he stitched some more. Another deep conversation with his raccoon friend, who he learned was named Mango. They had so much fun together, maybe he should consider adopting her. And then Zag dropped by to gift him a lemon. His furry friends had been great today, but the human ones maybe not so much when he found someone had secretly dropped a note for him to find. It was from Beatrice of all people. She'd said,
"You know what I love? Getting up and walking out of my room and stepping into a puddle of who knows what left by who knows who that's been sitting there for who knows how long. Oh gosh, I just love it so much."
wow. And after she played us that beautiful song and everything. Malcolm Landgrab called, and he said, "Landgrab Power Company safety alert. Due to squirrels, we are going to have to turn off your power sometime in the next 48 hours. Are you prepared?" Remembering they had solar panels, he said, "Of course." Then Malcolm said it had been a test, and Ziggy passed, and they got a discount on next month's bill. Another cookie breakfast, and then he sold a few patterns, giving him a little over 3,000. So he did a small expansion of his home. And there you have it. Not much, but it gave him a few more feet to walk around anyway. The next day, this really cute neighbor named Angela Pleasant stopped by to introduce herself. Ziggy was so relieved because ever since he found himself seeing and talking to a giant pumpkin-head scarecrow, he had been thinking he probably needed some outside friends. As her last name would suggest, she was very pleasant indeed. They shared some laughs and got to know each other, and in no time at all, Ziggy was absolutely smitten. She seemed to like him too, since when he flirted with her, she flirted right back. And soon they were sharing their first kiss. Ain't they just the sweetest? As she was leaving, he took a chance and stopped her and asked if she'd be willing to stay for a while and maybe go somewhere private. And what do you know? She agreed. Hopefully his future neighbor won't mind him using their tent too much. As they say, this could be the start of something beautiful. Later, he upgraded a few items in the hopes that Mitchell would stop breaking them whenever he went on one of his sad, haunting sprees. Angela called the next morning and asked him out on a date. He happily accepted, and they met at a lounge in Willow Creek, where they shared a charcuterie plate and some drinks. It was night on the town day, which means the food and drinks were free. So he grabbed the charcuterie from earlier and ordered a plate of hummus and stashed them both to take home for leftovers. Then they talked and cuddled on the couch some before calling it a night. The next day, Angela asked if he'd like to move in together. He really wanted to, but since his house was currently not much bigger than a prison cell, he told her he was sorry, but he didn't feel like it was the right time. Thank goodness, because I really didn't feel like trying to juggle more married roommates. He had another yard sale, selling one for $780 and another for 636 simoleons. At some point, his spiffy mustache came back. While knitting project number 1105, he reached level 9 of the knitting skill. Ziggy thought he would try selling knitted objects on the table for a bit, but they're just not as effective as selling the cross-stitch. The octopus got him 112, the llama cactus 352, and the turtle brought 156 simoleons. Luckily, he had a few hoops that got him a lot more. Ending the sale with a little over 5,000 simoleons, he was finally able to improve his house a little. He still needs a lot more, like a bathroom, for instance, but there was just nothing like the feeling he had the first time he knitted in his own rocking chair on his own front porch. He invited his roomies over for a first friends dinner in his new home, But when Beatrice got there, she had to pee so bad her eyeballs were floating, and she smelled like a goat. She ran off to take care of all that while he and Azure grabbed a plate, but then she came back for some reason and peed right on his brand new floor. Another sale, and he made enough to rearrange things a little bit and finally put in a bathroom. No shower just yet, but hey, we're getting there. And plus, it was rebate day, so we got a bunch of money back. Bills were due again, another 5,533 simoleons, and once again, not enough money in the kitty to pay them, so he gathered up a bunch more items from the town and sold them to make enough to get them paid. He had spent so much time cleaning from all the items Mitchell broke that he actually gained a new neat freak personality trait. Then one of his items sold on Plopsy, and he got a new shower!
Yay!
And was able to decorate the bathroom as well. Another long knitting stretch, and he finally maxed out the knitting skill. And remember his raccoon friend Mango? Well, he adopted her and changed her name to Frog, which, FYI, is what knitters and crocheters call undoing a project, because you rip it out. It had been a while since he had seen Angela, so he was excited when she stopped by. They quickly helped themselves to Azure's bed. Hopefully she doesn't mind too much. Then he caught his brand new kitchen on fire because, of course he did. And then the insurance money was only enough to cover replacing the counters, so he no longer had a stove again for a while. He dressed Frog in the cutest sweater. He was glad she had agreed to move in. It was just so much better with her around. So much time has passed at this point that Malcolm Landgrab was calling again about the squirrel. We started in spring, y'all, and now it's fall. Anyway, he told them they were prepared, so he's getting another discount on utilities. With his latest knitting project, he made enough for a stove, then somehow managed to burn the dang kitchen down again. And then Frog did this!
Get the F out of there, mate, ASAP!
And can someone tell me why the heck half your house has to burn down before the sprinklers finally come on? Frog somehow got through this completely unscathed, but Ziggy is definitely going to need some therapy. Man, that was a lot. With his next knitting project, he completed the next milestone of his aspiration. The next one is the last one, and he will have to donate 5 knitted items to charity, not like we're trying to earn a living or anything here, achieve level 10 of the knitting skill, which he's done already, yay, complete 5 legendary knittables, I'm not sure if we've even knitted one legendary one yet, and then teach another sim to knit. He chose to teach Patchy the Scarecrow to knit. He doesn't have real fingers with joints and stuff, so it was tricky for him, but he finally got the hang of it. At this point, he was pretty much knitting and cross-stitching around the clock, knitting to make enough money for his donations requirement and hoping for legendary quality, and stitching to earn as much money as possible. He earned enough to make a few more home improvements, like an expanded kitchen area and a sectional sofa in the living room. But the best part was, he got himself a full-size bed. It's winter now, y'all, but he finally completed the Lord of the Knit's aspiration. He worked, off camera, for absolute ever to cross-stitch a ton of objects and sell them to have enough to complete his tiny home and to add upgrades to the community, plus to donate his $10,000 to the kitty. It was spring at this point, an entire year, y'all. But there was still snow on the ground, so he rented a Dr. June's weather control device from the local hardware store to change the temperature to hot so that everything would melt so we could see to build. And thanks to Mitchell's sadness rampages where he broke everything, Ziggy's handiness skill was so high the machine worked on the first try. And this is Ziggy's finished home. I made a few cosmetic changes here and there and then furnished each room completely. Around back, because there is so much to do in the community space, I kept it pretty simple with some landscaping, a patio, and an outdoor eating space. I exposed some brick in the living room, got him a good TV and a place to put all of his cute knitted objects, furnished the kitchen, decorated in his signature yellow. Same with the bedroom, with a little funky mid-century style. He hung a painting that he chose from the community center from Azure, and hung all of his bird pictures on the wall. For the community, Ziggy rearranged a little. He moved the shelf for the collected and donated items down to the basement and added a second shelf for more spaces. Since he had taken one of Azure's beautiful paintings for his home, he in turn donated a few cross-stitch patterns and some knitted decorations I put in later. But his biggest contribution was to expand the basement and put in a home gym. It will be great for combating all of Beatrice's yummy baked goods, as well as relieving stress or whatever else. And so there we have it, y'all. Ziggy Yarn, Lord of the Knits and Cross-Stitch, and his pretty yellow mid-century tiny home. Oh, and Frog, too. I want to thank y'all again for being here with me. Ziggy was a lot, but I still had a lot of fun with him, and I'm looking forward to playing the next townie. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button, and subscribe if you're not already so you know when my next videos come out. Thanks again for being here, and I'll see y'all soon. Dag dag!